This is Seth with SethPerler.com and 2eNews. And today we're going to explore the problem of how do we support 2E kids who need different tools, who need something different. And before I begin here, I want to really welcome you. My name is Seth Perler. I'm an executive functioning 2E coach out of Boulder, Colorado, and I help struggling students figure out how to navigate this thing called school. And today we're starting our first video column with 2eNews. So you're either visiting us here through SethPerler.com or 2eNews. And we'll be doing a video column on a regular basis. And the one that I'm doing today, how to support 2E kids who need something different. This is going to be a 4-part series where I'm really going to dive into this topic for you so that you, the parent or the teacher, can have better tools to empower your students. So let's break this down. I'm going to ask the same question again, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail about the question. The question is, how do we effectively support 2E students who don't respond well to traditional executive functioning tools, such as task lists, planners, calendars, binders, and so on? So in looking at this question and breaking this down, what I'm going to do for you today is break it down in 2 specific areas. I'm going to get 2 big ideas to help you help these students. One big idea is that we need to really understand what the tools are that they need. Unfortunately, this isn't done consciously. Kids aren't directly taught these things. Nobody sort of systematizes this. I'm going to break this down for you so you know exactly what these tools are. Number 2, we have to ask the right questions. A lot of times as adults, we are asking the wrong questions, which means that we're getting the wrong answers. And I'll break down exactly what that means for you in a bit as well. So, first of all, let's look at the tools where traditional tools often don't work for these kids. So basically, your child or your students, if you're the teacher, they need to have a certain number of systems or tools in place in order for them to be successful. What's really important for us as adults to understand is that these tools, these executive functioning tools, these things that we use, they not only will need in order to navigate school and their responsibilities now, but they will also need as they grow into their future, as they become older and decide what career they want to go to, if they want to go to college or what they want to do. Regardless of the direction they go in, they absolutely, positively will have to have these executive function skills or tools or systems good enough. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to have it decent enough so that they can effectively execute on the goals and dreams that they have. Otherwise, as we know, they are headed down paths where they are not able to live to their potential, where they really limit the choices and possibilities and opportunities in their life. So, what are these tools? So the first big idea we're going to look at is, what are these tools or these systems or these things that they need? What exactly is it? So I have several of them here. Number 1. One thing that they need is they need to be able to plan. Planning is an extraordinarily complex skill. It takes a long time to develop. And one of the problems is that kids who are more systems-oriented, left-brain kids who are naturally good at this stuff, who are naturally organized, they seem to pick up on these systems, for example, planning, through osmosis. Somehow, in 6th or 7th grade, a lot of kids are able to plan pretty well. They're able to use their calendar. They're able to make a daily plan. They're able to use their agendas. But when a kid struggles with executive function, they often don't know how to plan effectively in order to track and manage their schoolwork and their responsibilities. So the number 1 thing that these kids need is they need to be able to plan. They need the tool of being able to plan. Number 2 thing that they need to be able to manage their materials. They need a system, an effective system for managing their papers, their materials in their backpack, their school materials, their school supplies, ways to archive certain school work, ways to even manage their materials in terms of their materials in their lockers. So basically, we need to be able to plan. We need to be able to manage materials. Next thing they need to be able to manage is they need to be able to have a tool for managing technology. Obviously, they have to be managing their portals, their inbox. They have to be able to not be distracted by certain things online. So they need to be able to effectively monitor their grades and their assignments and all this stuff online. So they need to be able to manage technology. Next thing they need to be able to do, the next tool that they have to be able to use is a self-advocacy tool. They need to be able to proactively know how to communicate with teachers. And like I said with planning, all of these, this is a huge skill. To learn how to advocate isn't just making a decision and saying, hey, I'm going to advocate for myself, although adults sometimes think it is. It's a massive skill to be able, especially for certain kids who might be very introverted, they might be shy, they might be being bullied or picked on after class if they were to advocate for themselves publicly. So there are a lot of things to look at here. So anyhow, they need to be able to advocate. They need to also, the next one is the sacred study space. They need to have a space where they can effectively work on homework, where they can focus, where they can study, a place that's free of distractions and optimized for focus. The next thing that they need study skills or note-taking skills or homework skills. They need to know how to learn, how to be doing the school stuff. And finally, they need a system or a tool to maintain their systems. I call this the Sunday night overhaul because on Sunday nights just happens to be a great night where students can go ahead and overhaul their systems. They can overhaul their planner, they can overhaul their materials, they can overhaul their tech, look at their online portal, email teachers, deal with their inbox, advocate when they need to, tidy up their sacred study space, and do their any other studying and homework that needs to be done. So I'm going to go over that really quick. So what happened here is that we have these 2E kids, these asynchronous kids, these kids that learn very differently, and they need something different. And we try to give them tools. We try to say, here's the school planner, here's the 3-ring binder, use this, use that. But oftentimes the tools that we're giving them are not working for them. So we have to personalize and tailor and customize these tools to these highly asynchronous kids. But in order to do that, one of the first things we need to do is even know what the tools are. And since so many kids pick up on them seemingly through osmosis, we do not directly teach them. So what I'm suggesting to you is that parents, teachers, we need to empower them. We need to directly teach them and guide them in how to use the tool. And what are the tools that they need? Specifically, they need to know how to plan, they need to know how to manage their materials, they need to know how to manage technology, they need to know how to advocate for themselves, they need to have a sacred study space to work in, they need to have study skills, note-taking skills, homework skills, they need to have a system for managing the systems that I just mentioned. So those are the things that you need to focus on. If you focus on those, and I have an assessment that I'll link here, that will go through those in a very, very, very concrete way to make it very specific for you. You can use that assessment to help you figure out where to focus your energy so you can better help your child. So that is number one. And looking at these kids that need different tools, number one is we have to know what the tools are. Number two, we have to ask the right questions. If we don't ask the right questions, we aren't going to get the right answers. So what does that mean? Well, what I want to talk about here with asking the right questions, the main right question we want to ask is this: why isn't the tool working? And I'm going to talk about Iceberg Theory. We have an iceberg here. What we tend to see as adults, what many adults see, is the tip of the iceberg. And when we see the tip of the iceberg, and we don't see what's beneath the surface, we aren't asking the right questions, okay? So what happens is we see the tip of the iceberg. We see missings, incompletes, zeros, late work, lack of motivation, supposedly, disorganization. We see these things, and then we say, why are these things happening? And we have a story, and the story goes something like this. This student is struggling in school because they're not motivated. They're not disciplined enough. They're just not trying hard enough. They just need to work harder. They just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They just don't care about school. And they're lazy. These messages are not taking into account what's beneath the surface. Something's going on that's beneath the surface. It's not as simplistic as we like to make it as adults. And when we use those messages that I just mentioned, those are shaming messages. They do not do anything to change the situation. What they often do is make the student feel worse, okay? We can logic them, rationalize with them, try to convince them, lecture them, and often when we're doing those things, we are giving these shaming messages, and our child is going to sit there and say, yeah, you're right, I'll try harder, I'll be more motivated, I promise, give me a reward, give me a punishment if I don't do it. We have all these things that are not working. So what I'm suggesting to you is that if we want to give these non-traditional kids who need different tools, if we want to give them the right tools, we have to ask the right questions. And the right question is to ask, what's going on beneath the surface? So, what is going on beneath the surface? Now, I'm going to break that down for you. There are a few things here. Number one, beneath the surface, the child, most likely, because this is what I do, I'm an executive function coach, I see this all the time, the child most likely has legitimate executive function issues. Even if there's no diagnosis or anything like that, your child's brain is developing. The prefrontal cortex, where executive function takes place, this front part of the brain, will continue to develop until they're 25 or 30 years old. It's got a lot of growth to do. It's still developing. Some kids just don't have the executive function to be able to do what we're asking them to do. So they have legitimate executive function struggles relative to what they're being asked to do. So, number one question that we want to ask, why isn't the tool working? One great reason is that usually there's executive function stuff going on. 2, remember asynchrony. This is why they're 2E. Because they're asynchronous. They're all over the place. They might be way above grade level in one subject, way below grade level in another subject, on grade level in another subject, way above beyond grade level in another subject, way not as mature as other kids when it comes to certain issues, more mature than most kids, and they can carry on adult conversations when it comes to certain topics, etc., etc., etc. They're all over the place. Okay, so they develop asynchronously. So that's going on beneath the surface. It's asynchrony. So if they're asynchronous, they're going to need personalized, tailored, customized systems or tools. The next thing, the third thing I want to mention here in terms of why the tool isn't working here, asking the right question, why isn't the tool working? The third reason it's not working is we want to ask, is it a can't or a won't? When we think it's a won't, that the student won't use the tool, which happens often, adults often think it's a won't, and it's usually a can't, but when we think it's a won't, we send the messages that I mentioned before. You're lazy. You're not trying hard enough. You're not motivated. You're not disciplined. Why don't you just try a little bit harder? And then the kid internalizes it. I'm stupid. I'm lazy. I'm a failure. I'm dumb. I can't. Why do it anyway? This is stupid. So is it a can't or a won't? If it's something going on beneath the surface, it's often a can't. So we want to look at that. If I seem a little bit passionate and frustrated, I just see so much suffering from the kids that I work with. It affects me deeply. That's why I do what I do. Anyhow, is it a can or a won't? Is what we're asking them to do developmentally appropriate for them? Are we setting them up to fail? Okay. The next one, number 4. Is what we are asking them to do engaging to them? Is it meaningful? Is it purposeful? Are we asking them to do busy work and dittos and worksheets that are meaningless to them? Are we asking them to jump through a bunch of hoops to do projects that they're not engaged in? Are we asking them to learn content that they're not engaged in? If it's content they're not engaged in, they can learn to be engaged by having somebody teach them how amazing the content is. Are they connecting with the teacher? Do they feel cared about the teacher? Are they being asked to do things by a teacher they feel is being condescending towards them, or who they feel hates them, or who they feel doesn't like them? So we need to be asking about engagement. Why isn't the tool working? The more engaged a student is, the more likely they are going to be willing to try to use the tool, the executive function tool that we're trying to teach them, if it matters to them, if it's engaging to them. Next, why isn't the tool working? Do they even understand the tool? Do they understand the system? Do they understand the principles behind planning? Again, planning is extraordinarily complex. It's not just give them a planner and write in it. Hey, pull out your planners, everybody write down this. It's very complex. Taking notes is complex. How do they learn how to do that? We have to teach them. We often think, oh, they just somehow figured out how to take notes. Well, we don't really teach that in school. We teach math, science, social studies, reading, writing. Do we teach note-taking directly? Do we teach how to use a planner directly, specifically, thoroughly, in depth? So, do we teach how to organize? Do we give them time and space and support in organizing their stuff in a meaningful way? Point is, do they even understand the systems or the tools that we are expecting them to use? So, what I did here in this video is I looked at this question. How do we support 2E kids that need different tools? Again, this is a 4-part series. This is part 1 today. And in part 1 today, I looked at 2 big ideas in terms of how to help these kids who need something different. First thing we need to do, if they need different tools, is we have to understand what the tools are. Again, the tools are planning, managing materials, managing tech, advocacy, having a sacred study space, study skills, and having a way to maintain your systems. 2, we have to be asking the right question. And the main question is, the overarching question, the iceberg question is, why isn't the system working? What's going on beneath the surface? And what's going on beneath the surface is that there's executive function problems. They're very asynchronous. Is it a can't or won't? Usually it's a can't. Is it even engaging? And do they even understand the system? So now we've looked at these 2 big ideas. We've really broken them down. So look on my site, SethPerler.com or 2eNews, and download the, I have a PDF that will help break this down with an assessment. And you can print it off and use it as you wish, but it will really help you get the clarity you need so that we can do what we're trying to do, which is the reason you're watching this video, that we can take action to better support our students so that they can ultimately have the skills that they need to be able to create a fantastic future for them. Again, my name is Seth Perler with SethPerler.com. We're here today with our first edition of 2eNews online, the video column. I'm so excited that you're here. And if you haven't subscribed to 2eNews or SethPerler.com, please subscribe. You can comment on this on YouTube. We'd love to hear your feedback or what you think about this video or what you want or need in the future. And finally, if you like this, please share it with somebody that you care about. With that, I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.